Zooey Mama! How's it going, everybody? Me and Tucker are back again with another tier list video for you all. This time we are covering the 4 cost cards. How are you doing today, Tuck?
Man, I'm feeling good. We haven't been feeling good the past couple days, but we out here, we're vibing. Great to be here. Always love doing a tier list with my boy Doc D.
Nice, that's what I like to hear. And so, yeah, again, we're going to cover all 4 cost cards currently in Marvel Snap. We're going to rank them S through F tier, S tier being cards that are just amazing value, borderline overpowered. We would not be surprised if these cards get nerfed. A tier is also just great cards. They see a good amount of play in meta decks, whether that's right now or just throughout time in most metas. B tier, solid cards. May they have some homes, but not close to being overpowered. C tier is where cards start getting a bit more questionable. Maybe they have homes, but in decks that are traditionally very weak and don't see much meta play, and they just have better options out there. And then F tier is our please buff category. These are cards we just think are horrible, and you really have basically no reason to play them. And we just want to see them get buffed and get some love from Second Dinner. So without further ado, we will kick it off, starting with Absorbing Man. So, where do we have Absorbing Man in our tier list?
I think he's like a B, low B tier. I don't think he's anything crazy. I think
Uh
there's
huh.
definitely a time and place for Observer Man. And like with Zabu being the way he is, there's not
Yeah.
no problem having him like as a bonus tech card. But I don't think he's necessarily like super strong in them.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say low B, maybe high C. So maybe we'll stick him low B for now and see how it looks later. We'll make some
Hmm.
final adjustments at the end if we think we need to change up the list a bit. But yeah, all of these cards, almost all of them, really love Zabu synergy. So, there are a few that don't, but this is
Hmm.
basically all of Zabu's friends here is what we're ranking. So they all get
Literally, because they're all for cost.
a big benefit from that. All right, next up, we've got a Tumo. We've got a big 410. We seem to be getting more just 410s and just big stats cards in the game. Tuma has a pretty big downside. He really only sees play in like ongoing destroyer decks or the big dumb idiots deck, like what Gunny T loves to play. I'm thinking C tier, maybe low B. He just seems to get overshadowed by some other 410s. What do you think?
I think C tier is good. I think you have to like combo with him to get maximum value or have cards and play it first.
Uh huh.
So that definitely puts him more of a C tier. Like you have to have this in order to be effective, kind of thing.
Right. He requires very specific synergy,
Hmm.
and there's not actually that many cards that help him. I mean, it's Armor, it's Invisible Woman, Zero, and Supergiant, right? I think those are really the only ways you can play him in
Yeah.
a lane with another card. So very specific and limiting there. But he has good power, so not F tier card. All right, next up we've got Beta Ray Bill. Great card, tons of fun. I think he's one of the most fun 4 cost cards, and he's great to play alongside Thor and Jane Foster. Are we thinking B tier again? Low A, somewhere in B tier above Absorbing Man. What do you think?
I think honestly in B tier. I think it's crazy like the way we were looking at the Thor package before Beta came out, where like Thor's just a C tier card,
Uh huh.
but with the addition of Beta Ray, like actually kind of boosting that archetype in such a way, I think you have to add that value into also him being able to double his power, which is better than just Mjolnir.
Right.
Overall, I think a solid B tier, like upper
Yeah.
beam.
Yeah, that's a good point. He is slightly better than Thor, but what's
Hmm.
more important is not that he's a bit of a better Thor. It's that you have him and Thor together, right? You've got this an actual card package,
Yeah.
and we'll put him above Absorbing Man because we love our homie Bill. Bill
Yeah,
is
and it's
awesome.
better than like the combo like situation we're talking about with like a Tuma too. It's a different like you can actually win games, of course, not drawing Mjolnir. Whereas like if you don't draw the combo with a Tuma, you literally can't play cards on that lane.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's just stuck in your hand. All right, next up we've got Black Cat. So very niche, really stuck to discard. Sees play mainly just in like Hella Ghost Rider discard decks. Where do we rank her? Is she B just because of discard? Is she C because she's not necessarily maybe needed in all discard decks? What do you think?
So I think she's better than a Tuma. I think there's argument for B. I think kind of still more a higher C. I think because like of course if you're not discarding something, it does allow you to automatically have something to Ghost Rider or to Hela.
Uh huh.
But like you have to still play this in discard in order
Right.
to actually get value out of this card.
Right. That's a good point. Okay, we'll put in C for now. We can always review that later. We'll put above Attuma, though. Next up, we've got a card that was at one point pretty dang strong and took some nerfs. It got buffed and then got nerfed after. Talking about Captain Marvel as a 4/4. We got some people calling for her as a 4/5 again. Is she C tier now? Is she F even? What do you think?
I think Captain Marvel is C tier. I think it's going to be interesting to see how she sees play with the new Elsa change. Because
That's
that's
a
one
good
of her
point.
main usage was in like the Elsa package, and I like a 4/6. You're looking at some pretty solid stuff, and you can kind of maybe juice her up a little bit. She's been really good with Hope as well. Like in Turo's deck with Hope. So I loved her at 4/5. That's when she had her like her freaking soft like sweet spot. But I think she's still like a high C tier card opposed to like being able to solidify herself as a B card.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, especially with Elsa, because you don't want to play her on the old Elsa where she fills the lane because you can't move her out right away. But definitely with the new Elsa change, that could bring back Captain Marvel just a little bit.
Yeah.
Give her some extra power. So would you have her below Black Cat?
I think just for the raw stats, because Captain Marvel still like depending on when you play her doesn't go off opposed to like your opponent's like end of game interaction.
Makes sense. Next up, we've got Crossbones. This is tough. You know, I feel bad when I see Crossbones because we still just had Call Obsidian come out like a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
Call Obsidian is a 410, and most people, myself included, think Call Obsidian is easier to play than Crossbones. So more power, smaller limitations. I just think Crossbones himself wouldn't really be horrible, but there are just so many 4-cost cards that are just bigger and better. Like, you really have no reason to play him. He's just been power crept. In my opinion, it's one of the biggest examples of power creep. I have him as F tier now because he's never like the best option. What do you think?
Yeah, I think F tier is totally correct. If this was old Zabu, where your for cost 2 less instead of 1 less, maybe there would have been an argument for him to be somewhat low C tier. But
Uh-huh.
like the restrictions of his text definitely makes him need to get a rework with Cole just being the way better option.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, the power levels we've seen in this game. And what do you know? Up next, alphabetical order, his buddy Cole comes right after, just living in his shadow everywhere, even in my collection. So Call Obsidian is extremely strong, in my opinion. You don't put him in every deck. You do need some one-cost cards, probably at least 2 or 3. He obviously works great in Thanos. Is Cole A tier? What are we thinking?
I think Cole is gonna be our first A tier card we have on the list. I think it just the 410 stat line. It's like you Shang-Chi me or you're just gonna go down.
Yeah.
Like it's just the power creep is crazy.
Yeah, and one thing, before he came out, a lot of people were saying, oh, he's going to get killed with Shang-Chi. But one of my biggest points is always like, you're Shang-Chi in a 4-cost card, and that's still good, but Shang-Chi gets his best value hitting 5 and 6-cost cards. So if they
Hmm.
Shang-Chi or Cole, they're not Shang-Chi what you're playing after that. So even though it's a big Shang-Chi target,
Hmm.
like, your opponent still has to commit, pay the energy, and if they don't, you just got 10 power for 4, and that's crazy. Next up, we've got Dracula, another discard staple. Where do you have him?
So I had Dracula in A tier. I
Okay,
think the thing I like about Dracula, there's only like 2 ways to counter Dracula. Okay, the 2 ways to counter Dracula are to Lady Deathstrike Dracula, which who's playing Lady Deathstrike right now.
true.
And your other way would be to put cards in your opponent's hand to offset Dracula's power, such as like a Maximus or like a
Master
Master
Mold or
Mold.
something, yeah.
So like with that, just where it's at right now, and with how like crazy good I would say discard is with the Black Knight, with the Helidex, I think you really can't necessarily always account for Dracula's power. And probably I'd say 9 times out of 10 he's hitting something big, and it's an end game interaction. So like I
Yes.
think he's just a solidified himself as an A tier. He has a very very high ceiling. His like floor honestly isn't too bad either.
Right.
I think he's just solid in A, not like top of A, but like maybe middle to lower.
Yeah, I think you make great points. The fact that it's end of game can be good. I mean, even if your opponent's playing Captain Marvel, if you set Dracula down after, he'll trigger after her, so she can't account for him. You're right about his floor. I mean, as long as your hand isn't empty, his
Hmm.
floor is usually like 4 or 5 power at least, you know, if you just had like a
Yeah.
swarm in hand, but obviously it can
Mm-hmm.
go really big. So I agree that he gets huge value, can win games. We'll put him right under Cole here. I like that.
I know this most recent like change too, where he can continue to absorb power beforehand. So like if he
Hmm.
were to get forged, whatever that additional goes into the change, which is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next up we've got Drax. You know what? I don't know what's going on with these 4/8s, but the second tier needs to do something. Because we talked about Crossbones, how he's obviously F tier. Drax is like a Crossbones that you have to work even harder for. Like to get to 8 power, you gotta do so much. They changed like Jessica Jones and Rescue. They gave them more power when Shang-Chi got nerfed to killing 10 power cards. They made some of these
Hmm.
other forecast cards have a ceiling of 9. But Drax, they didn't. They kept him as 8. And you're just never going to play him. Is this easy F tier? And is he above or below Crossbones in F tier?
This is easy F tier, below Crossbones. I don't
Okay.
know what's happening with these Guardians cards. They like their Star Lord, they like their Rocket Raccoon, and they like their Gamora, but Groot and Drax just get the freaking back half of the stick, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, they are. They're horrible. Do not play Drax. Then we've got Enchantress, one of the classic best tech cards in the game. Just take away all of your opponent's ongoings. A 4/5 stat line is solid. Is she A tier or B tier? What do you think?
I think at the time of recording this, she is B tier, top B tier. But with the leech change, I think we're going to be getting more
Oh,
Enchantress play, and she could be A tier. So I think there's an argument right now that she's B tier, but I think by the time we've all adjusted to the new leech interaction, she might be like lower A tier.
you know, that's interesting. Especially, I was thinking when I saw the leech change, I was thinking like, oh, I can play more ongoing tribunal now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just like
Exactly.
just put in Cosmo or something. So just thinking of not the current meta, but just overall, maybe a
Mm-hmm.
bit of what we think is going to happen or the past metas, how much play she has seen. Do you think she goes to low A?
I think she goes to low A, honestly. Yeah.
Okay, let's put her there. And she just see good play in like Sarah decks, where you have Sarah and or Zabu, and you can do like
Mm-hmm.
Shang-Chi and Enchantress on the final turn, and it just goes crazy. All right, next up, we've got another discard specific card in Ghost Rider. Where do you have Ghost Rider?
I think Ghost Rider's a safe B tier. I think like still a mid to lower B tier card. Since it's a single use interaction,
Mm-hmm.
I think it really gets its most value opposed to a Hella deck. It's more of a Black Knight card now at this point.
Yeah.
But I think the power you bring back, like if it is something big like an Infinite or even a Magneto, it can turn games for you. But I don't think it's at like a point where it's like this is a super super strong card because it only happens one time.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. I think B tier is fine. He's a good card. And what's nice, as opposed to Dracula, who's just getting the power, Ghost Rider gets the card and its ability. So if you get like a
Hmm.
Doctor Doom or something, you know, even that could help you. But he is obviously RNG. If you've discarded multiple things, you don't know. So where in B would you have him? Below Bill or above?
I think above Bill.
Above Bill. Next up, we are looking at Hellcow, who is a 4/8 now. So kind of the crossbone stat line, but obviously synergizing with discard, and he's gotten some helping hands recently, especially with
Hmm.
Proxima Midnight coming out. So I think I used to have Hellcow as F tier, especially when he was a 4/6. But now that he's a 4/8 and random discard isn't that bad if half of your deck you're happy to discard randomly. I have him as C tier. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Betsy fits into
Or
the
her?
low
I
C
have her as
tier.
C
Yeah,
tier. You
it
got
is.
me.
It
You
is. It
got
is.
me.
It is a her, but it is. It's okay. Yeah. I think she's C tier. I think Corvus definitely. You're probably gonna play more than Hellcow. Because even though neither of them are targeted, just because you get the extra umph with Corvus. But I think of the 4/8 stat line cards, like I'm sorry for Crossbones, but like even Hellcow, like a lot of these discard interactions, you're just wanting to discard stuff anyways.
Yeah.
So I think C is a solid option for Miss Betsy.
All right. We will move her to C tier. And are we thinking below Black Cat, above Miss Marvel?
Is it crazy if I say
Captain Marvel.
above Black Cat
I don't
because you're
think it's
actually
crazy.
doing more? Okay.
I don't think. I think especially now with the
Mm-hmm.
potential that just random discard decks have. All right, we've got Hercules. He's kind of been a meme card since he came out, and they even buffed him. They buffed him in
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know if it was like a week or 2 weeks, but they buffed him really fast. And he's still not seeing any play. He's simply too expensive. I have him as F tier, but maybe the top of F tier for now. What do you
Yeah, I
think?
think I think top of F tier is fair. I think with the 4 cost slot and move, if you're going to be doing anything in 4 cost with move, it's going to be a Phoenix Force kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't think Hercules necessarily is like a bad card. I just think he just needs a little bit more help, and that's why I think F tier is pretty solid.
Yeah, I think if he got maybe some big synergy, but if he just got like a tiny buff, whether they lowered his cost and power or just gave his power a bit more of a boost, I think that could help him. I think just a
Or if he could
tiny
hit multiple
buff.
cards, like if
Yeah,
he could do multiple interactions, kind of thing.
yeah, multiple in one turn. Just any
Mm-hmm.
small little buff could make him solid. Like he feels close to being solid, but he's not worth it. The juice ain't worth the squeeze right now for Hercules. Next up, we've got High Evo. I just have this as automatic S tier. He's so good. He creates his own archetype. Different variations of High Evo archetypes exist and have existed. I think this is a quick and easy S tier card for me. What do you think?
I think it's S tier. I think High Evo and Thanos are the two archetypes in the game that are the most flexible opposed to any archetype because you
Yeah,
can literally fluctuate 1 card with High Evo, 2 cards with High Evo. It's just crazy just the amount of combos you can do with it.
yeah,
Yeah, I love it.
yeah, and it's Thanos especially is the most, but High Evo as well. Yeah, he goes crazy. If you don't have High Evo, you can't play a ton of decks, a ton of High Evo
Yeah.
decks. All right, and then we've got Iron Lad. I'm a huge advocate of Iron Lad. Just good value in the decks. When you use him, you usually have a lot of good targets, whether it's on reveal targets or ongoing targets. And a 4/6 stat line is solid. I mean, if he copies Iron Man or something, it's just like so crazy. I have Iron Lad maybe just below High Evo, also an S tier or top of A. What do you think?
I definitely have him in S tier. I think below High Evo for now is good. I don't necessarily know if he's the number 2 S tier card, but I
Right.
definitely have them in S tier. I think the downside of Iron Lad is just hitting a card that has no ability. Like
Yeah.
other than that, his upside is literally exponential. So like
Right.
I love Iron Lad. It's my favorite card in the game. So like I'm here for it.
Yeah, yeah. Iron Lad, like you said, his floor, and we talked about this with Dracula. Iron Lad's floor is a 4/6, which is kind of whatever. It does add power to the board, but obviously you would never really just play a vanilla 4/6 in your deck. But his ceiling is crazy. If he hits Doctor Doom, your
hmm
opponent retreats, right? Like on turn 4 or turn 3 if you played him after Zabu.
I've had him hit Zola too, and then you can Zola your Iron Lad after that, and
It's
then it just
crazy.
gets crazy. Yeah.
He goes so hard. I love it. Next up, we have Jessica Jones, who obviously is a pretty early game card. So we kind of think of her as a beginner card, but she becomes a 4/9 now.
hmm
And I don't think she's F tier. I think pretty much she's always a 4/9 because you choose, and she doesn't have a big restriction like Crossbones. Usually you just play Storm and then Jessica Jones behind her, or just in some lane you know you're not going to play on the following turn. So I think she's okay. Maybe high C tier.
I think high C tier is fair. I think there's an argument for low B tier,
Uh huh.
but I think with the restriction of like not having to play a card there, I think high C, or well, I mean, if we have no, she's low B. I think she's below Absorbing Man. I think she's above Hellcow. Yeah.
All right, then we've got Jubilee, who is good. She's fine. She obviously works well in Lockjaw decks, and even some Living Tribunal or Ramp stuff. She's another card I see as B or C. Where do you have her?
I think she's definitely in like a low B tier. If Iron Lad was not a card in the game, Jubilee would be
Yeah,
higher.
yeah. Iron Lad
Um,
just like kind of power creeps her, but they are different. She does actually draw the card from your deck, which can be
mhm.
nice. Depending on the deck, sometimes you want her instead. So where in B tier do you think she fits?
I have her above Ghost Rider because like Jubilee, like her downside is maybe you don't get the card you want, but like her upside is you actually land your Hail Mary.
All right, and next up we have Kazar, really the zoo guy here. just buff zoo decks, doesn't really see much play elsewhere. Where do you have him? He's kind of hard to place for me.
I think like with the way we're going with this, I think you got to put Kazar in B tier. I think the way Zoo is at right now, I think we're used to Zoo being okay. You're throwing Ultron, you're throwing all this stuff. But I think the new Zoo that we've been playing with Black Swan, with Kyera getting some value too, like your one drops are getting pretty big. The new change to Ant-Man. I think Kazar
Yeah.
actually has a place to kind of, not necessarily like power creep, but like it does get a little scary if you can literally flood your board for some Kazar interaction. So I think maybe above like a Beta Ray Bill kind of thing, just because it's a global effect and like kind of helping out.
All right, yeah, that's good. And he has been getting some tools, like you mentioned. He's obviously
Mhm.
works well with Black Swan. I think he may even get some value from Proxima Midnight if you're playing like Squirrels and Rocks.
Mhm.
Or not Proxima Midnight, sorry. I mean a Mockingbird, because you're playing like
Yep.
these one-cost cards that insert in your deck. So I think that's a good home for now. Next up is Lockjaw,
Again.
formerly... Lockjaw was featured in the S tier of our 3-cost video, to which he was promptly nerfed right after. Is that a
Mhm.
coincidence that he was nerfed right after we put out our video saying he was
I
S
think
tier?
not.
So, Lockjaw now, he works the same way, but he is a 4-cost 5-power card. So if you want him out in turn 3, you do need to Zabu him. But he now has 5 power, so he actually kind of adds more value himself, even if what you pull isn't great. Still pretty RNG heavy. Is the new Lockjaw A tier, B tier? I haven't really played him too much, but I imagine he's still pretty strong.
I think we keep him in A tier. I think he drops down one more with the additional cost. I think the power he has, adding 5 instead of 2 now, is really solid. But yeah, I think you put him below Enchanters. You still have to play for Curve now. You don't see him as often in the Thanos or the Hello list, but I think he's
Right.
still solid.
All right, sounds good to me. Good boy. Next up, we got Loki. Loki, the one of the most hated cards ever in Snap by the community, it seems like. Loki is maybe just A tier now. He still creates kind of his own archetype. He's really good competitively, top of ladder. In Conquest mode and tournaments, he sees some play. Is he A tier? Is he B tier? What are we thinking?
I think Loki is. I think he's A tier. I think what's really interesting is people are putting Loki in decks just if their hand bricks. So like
Right.
we saw him in Phoenix Force this weekend. We saw him in Thanos this weekend, just to make sure you can like just have your opponent's cards to play because you don't have anything to play. I think that is
Yeah.
crazy for an archetype. I think he's top of A tier, if not low S tier. But he is not an easy card to use. And I think that's what we discredit. Like we maybe see him
Uh
at like
huh.
lower levels of play, and we're like, oh, we just got Loki. But like on high levels, like a play, like the board space management, everything is absurd.
Right, and sometimes you don't want to lose your tech cards. I mean, if you've got Shang-Chi in
Mm-hmm.
hand, or Rogue, or Quake, and you're planning to use those on turn 5 or 6, like, you don't play Loki, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when he first came out, it was pretty much just play Quinjet, Collector, Loki, called a day. And so now,
Yes.
yeah, and it was busted. And so now it's not as overpowered, obviously, but it is
Mm-hmm.
a bit more, heavy into decision making because you're not powering up your Collector. So if you don't Loki, you might find better value in your other cards. So, all right, then we've got Man Thing. I like Man Thing as a card. I like the idea of him. We do have Luke Cage back to his former self of Global Protection, but Man Thing is still nowhere to be seen, really. Is he F tier?
I don't know. I think I might even have Hercules better than the Man Thing. He is in spotlights this week. So I
The
mean
cool
that's
variant.
cool.
Yeah, the cool comic book variant. They need to buff him now.
But
Because, yeah, I agree with you. I like Man Thing. Like, I like
mm-hmm.
him. I think it's cool. It's unique. And it feels bad, man. But I agree. I think he's F tier. I think we could put him below Hercules.
Yeah.
Hercules, technically, you could do like some wombo combo thing.
Mm-hmm.
Man Thing, we know his ceiling. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, apparently, his floor isn't good enough. All right, next up, we've got Miles Morales Spider-Man. He's okay. I mean, he's basically a 1/5 in a move deck. You
Mm-hmm.
can play him in like Silky Smooth, or you could even play him in like a Cerebro 5 deck because you've got Silk bouncing around. So he often comes out as a 1/5. Like, you often do play him. He's sometimes limited in terms of when you can play him because you need to do it
Hmm.
the turn after. But definitely not horrible. Is he low B, somewhere in C? I would have him maybe C tier. What do you think?
I like him in a C tier, like a top C tier. I
Uh
think
huh.
he gets better, honestly, with the New Hope interaction.
Yeah,
This is
that's
another
true.
card you can just like throw on Hope to be able to buff your stuff if you move something, and it's a 1 cost. Like one
Yeah.
five is good because if you look at the 1/5, I mean he's a 4 cost, of course. But like if you look at the 1/5, like a Titania or like a Martyr, the Miles value is literally. I play this card. There, nothing's gonna happen to this card. Which is it's a feels good opposed to the feels bad for Man Thing.
Yeah.
But I think like probably top of C. He's nothing like you have to have Miles on all your list, and he's like super strong. It's just like a okay, this is better than Jubilee. This is better than
Mm-hmm.
above Hellcow. That's what I was gonna say. I did not mean to say Miles is better than Jubilee. I was about to say Miles is better than Hellcow. I
Oh
like him at
yeah.
top of C.
All right, then we got Mr. Negative. He's a very fun card, very
Hmm.
unique. I think a bit of a like we'll say fan favorite. A lot of people are really big Mr. Negative players. You can climb to infinite, crazy combos, but he does just lose straight up to Mobius. And there are other ways to discount cards. Is Mr. Negative C tier?
I
Right.
think C tier because of course it introduces a new archetype, and when Mr. Negative hits, you know you're just gonna win.
Yeah,
So I
especially if you
think
negative into a Jane Foster.
yeah,
You pretty
it's
much
just
have the
game over.
Wombo. And
Hmm.
Ravana was really good for him because now you do Ravana and Zabu into Mr. Negative. Next up, we've got Moon Girl. Very interesting card. Traditionally sees playing some more kind of Wombo combo heavy decks where you
Hmm.
do like the double She-Hulk. You could combine her with Quinjet. Maybe has some stuff going on with Mockingbird who's coming out because you could get multiple like 0/9s or 1/9s. So is she B tier? She doesn't see too much play, but she's definitely an okay card and pretty unique in what she does. B tier, C tier, what do you think?
I think B tier. I think like the value she can overall add to your hand and everything too.
Yeah,
I think also with Mockingbird coming out, this just makes this card even better too potentially.
yeah,
Being able to like combo in that way because any card that is produced from Moon Girl counts as a card that didn't start in your hand or in your deck.
right.
So that adds value. I think she's really solid.
Yeah, would you have her below Bill, maybe?
Yeah, I think below Bill.
All right, perfect. Next up, we're up to Miss Marvel, a former season pass card. Used to be a 4/5, and you just needed one card at the adjacent locations. Now she's a 4/4, and you need two, but she still adds 14 power. I think she's still A tier.
Yeah, I think A tier. I think the interaction you're even getting with, like Miss Marvel, you don't necessarily have to fill both sides of her too
Right.
to get like the value, and like your opponent always is worried about you doing that.
Uh huh.
So like there's that level of just like in your opponent's head, and I think yeah, I think what other card is a 414? Like
So where in A tier would you have her?
I have her above Cole.
Next up, we've got Namor. He's a 4/11 when his ongoing is off, but it's very hard to win a lane with only 11 power. So usually he's just a 4/6. Is he F tier?
Yeah, I think he's F tier. I've been teching him a little bit with Scar at times to be able to cheat out Scar a little early with
Oh, that's
Namor in one
smart.
lane, but it's just it's just another feels bad. Like Namor is
Yeah.
such a cool like just card like character, and then I mean look, we have so many variants for Namor, but we didn't play him. So like maybe if they made him like a 4/7, like
I
we're
don't.
seeing more
Yeah,
now,
I
that
don't
could be a
know.
little bit better. But
He used to be a bit better too. With Miss Marvel, only needed one card in the lane. You could play
mhm.
him solo, so he would be 11. Miss Marvel would add an extra 5, but now she needs two cards, so they don't work anymore together. Because if you get her buff, you lose his. So, is he below Crossbones, above Crossbones? Where is he at?
I put him above Crossbones still. I think the 4/6 stat line you can at least play Namor. You can't
Yeah,
play Crossbones
that's
unless you're winning.
that's a good point. You can get him on the board.
Yeah.
All right, then we've got Nick Fury, mainly just in collector decks, some Loki stuff at times. C tier.
Yeah, I think C tier. The 4/5 is pretty good stat line too. Anything with Quinjet with Nick Fury, of course, you're looking at just some craziness. I
Yeah.
think Nick Fury goes down in his rankings next month with Valentina, but that's
Mm.
a conversation for another day.
Do you think below Black Cat, below Captain Marvel? Where do you have him?
I'm below Captain Marvel.
All right, next up we've got Omega Red, the new Omega Red. I was super happy when he got buffed. I use him oftentimes instead of
Mm-hmm.
Miss Marvel because if I have a deck that has a lot of one cost, I don't want to have to worry about spreading it out perfectly so Miss Marvel doesn't get her ability turned off in that lane. And you can play Omega Red in any lane, as you just need to be winning there. So you don't need to be in the middle. So to me, he's an alternative to Miss Marvel. I also have him low A tier. I could see the argument for B still. What do you think?
I think low A tier as well. I think like the argument is there, and I think like he's really good in some of these control decks too. If you just need priority for Eliath,
Yeah.
and you can slam him also onto a storm lane instead of Jessica Jones because you
Uh
know you're
huh.
going to doom afterwards too. I think he's got some solid value.
Yeah. Where in A tier do we have him?
Because of his conditions, I probably have him below Dracula,
All right. I think
but
that's
above
fair.
Enchantress. Yeah.
Phoenix Force, very niche specific card, but she has her certain decks. B tier? What do you think?
Yeah, I think a good Phoenix Force is like a A tier card, but it's so combo heavy.
Yeah.
I think B tier is solid. I think above, honestly, is it bad to say above Kasar?
Yeah. I agree. And Phoenix Force deck, there are some really good players out there, but it is hard to play a bit because
Mm-hmm.
you need to move, you need to destroy, you need to worry about board space. So not the
Mm-hmm.
most beginner friendly card, but definitely can pop off as a combo deck. All right, then we got Proxima Midnight. Discard specifically, but a 4/7 that's potentially a 0/7 going to the lane where you need her the most. Where do you rank Proxima?
I think Proxima. I think Proxima is a B tier card. I think like the stats is good. I think you still like get the most value out of her when you're discarding her. But I've seen some people do some like Sif tech with Proxima to get Proxima out on the board,
Uh huh.
because she's like the highest cost card river. I think she's a feels good card, and like the stat line feels good. You're not necessarily playing her on curve or playing her with Zabu,
Uh huh.
but I think the element she added to being able to get onto locations that you normally can't get onto with discard allows her to be a good card. I have her maybe above Phoenix Force. Is that bad?
I think that's fine. I think right below Ghost Rider is where I was kind of thinking as well.
Because it also works with Dracula. So like if Dracula
That's
absorbs her,
true.
she also drops down, which is cool.
That's true. That's very important interaction there. All right, next up we've got Rescue. Another 4/9 after her ability goes off, similar to Jessica Jones, although you need to play on her afterwards, and your opponent knows where you're about to play. I do think she's worse than Jessica Jones, but better than Crossbones. Is she low C? Is she F?
I think she's low C tier.
Do you have her
I think above
above, below
Atuma.
Atuma?
Above Atuma.
All right, sorry, Atuma. All right, then we've got Sentry. Sentry went from being nowhere, absolutely horrible as a 4/8, even got changed to a 4/10, still seeing no play. And then Annihilus comes out. And now you've just got this package that's everywhere. Where you have like Zabu, Sentry, Annihilus. Super strong. Does that alone just put Sentry in the A tier? Because that combo absolutely pops off and is in a lot of different decks?
Yeah, I think you have to put him in A tier. I think the 410, like it's another thing. Like, do I Shang-Chi this now, this 4 cost card, or do I need you to fill this right lane so I do not get this void on my side of the board?
Right.
Like I think that staple there, I think makes him. Do we put him? I think we might have to put him above. Yeah, I think above Dracula's good. I think Cole still, the conditions for Cole, like you don't have to have a nihilist, whereas like Sentry, like you have to have a way to get that void over, or you're
Uh
just
huh.
gonna be sad.
All right, then we've got Shang-Chi. I think this card could be S tier or very high A. I mean, throughout time, basically Shang-Chi has always been in the meta. He's almost always been in a great spot where he's gotten big value, and recently he's been like the most popular card in the game, even after he got changed to only killing cards with 10 or more power. There are just so many targets for him. I talked about earlier with Call Obsidian. Sometimes Call Obsidian isn't even worth it because there's just other targets. Like Shang-Chi has so many targets in the game. Almost every deck has a target for him. He gets huge value. Is he S tier?
Yeah, I think Shang-Chi's totally S tier. And I know we've talked about this like off camera too. It's like if Zabu's not a thing, like you've said earlier, a lot of these cards change their value dramatically.
Right.
But since how popular Shabu is, you have to have Shang-Chi in S tier because without Shang-Chi, this game just goes rampant.
All right, then we've got Shuri. Hasn't been too popular really since Blob came out, but has picked up a bit more recently with Kitty Pryde again. And just throughout time, has seen a lot of play. I mean, is Shuri just a staple A tier card?
Yeah, I think Shuri's A tier. Something I don't know if you've seen a lot recently, but Shuri Nimrod has made actually a pretty huge
Oh, that
comeback.
too. Yeah. And that's
And
Shang-Chi proof. That's Shang-Chi
yeah,
proof.
I think honestly she's like a top A tier card. I think Sauron Shuri decks will always have a place. They
Uh-huh.
may not be the top meta deck, but
They're
I think
viable,
the
though. They're always
value it
viable.
adds is and I think people are actually making use of Scar now. It's going to be interesting, of course, to see especially what she does next month with Red Hulk. I don't know if people are going to be teching that in, but we'll see. But I think no, I think top A. I honestly I have her right under Miss Marvel.
I think that's fair. All right, then we've got Silver Samurai. Really just see some plain discards. Seen some more play recently, though, so I would not say F tier. I would say maybe C tier, higher C.
Yeah, I think C tier. I think Silver Samurai really had his like peak when Darkhawk was probably more still a 4 cost card because he still had the 0 power. I mean, you can still
Yeah.
snipe some hella stuff, maybe above Captain Marvel. Because like the cool thing too, it's kind of like dependent on what energy cards your opponents have. Like if they have a Zabu
Yes.
or a Ravona, your Silver Samurai may have like a little less value. But if you have Zabu down and you hit a Samurai 3, you might hit a negative and like literally offset their game.
Then we've got Stegron. Uh, F, bottom of C. I mean, I don't necessarily think he's as bad as the other F tier cards, but I don't think he's really a good card.
He is F tier now, unfortunately. Next week when Cannonball comes out, you're literally gonna get no Stegron gameplay because Cannonball is just a better Stegron.
Maybe. He is
But
more
at the
expensive,
same,
though, and Stegron
he is
gets a Zabu discount.
yeah,
Stegron is too cheaper sometimes. But you're right, it is a random. You are moving a
it's
random card.
yeah, and it's just like it's a feels bad. Another feels bad thing. Like now,
Stegron does
Stegron
feels
was
bad.
a 4/7 that we saw like weeks and weeks ago. When he was in the game at a 4/7, you're like, okay, maybe, just maybe, but it's just a card. It's like, I honestly, I remember when Stegron came out, I was like, oh, this could be a really, really fun card. And then like since then, Stegron's probably like lowest 5% of like cards played in the game,
Actually, I never see Stegron. Would you have Stegron above or below Hercules?
below Hercules.
All right, then we've got Supergiant. This was a card. This is one of my proudest predictions here. A lot of hype around Supergiant before she came out. There was a ton of hype, and I said she was going to fall flat. I honestly don't think she's the worst card in the game. I just don't think she really has a home yet, whether she needs a buff or she just needs more synergy. I don't know if she's F tier, though. Maybe it's low C? I mean, I really don't think she's the worst in the game. I just don't think she's strong.
I think low C tier is good. I think the Super Giant play is just like you get maximum value if you have priority with Super Giant. I
Right.
think that's just where you see your
And if
home. It's
it
just like,
and if it messes up your opponent's turn 5. Like if they have a Sarah or Jane Foster deck. But if they don't, sometimes
mhm.
like it just didn't matter, right? Sometimes she's just a plain 4/5. So she
Yeah,
doesn't have the best floor is her problem. But her ceiling, she does have potential, like with Prio and Eliath. Where would you have her in C tier?
I might actually have her above Nick Fury.
I think that's fair. All right, then we've got Super Scroll. This is maybe my favorite tech card in the game. I love me some Super Scroll. I love putting him in my tournament decks because if you match up with someone with ongoings, it's like a free win. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
so hard if you're an ongoing player and you're in like a conquest game against someone with Scroll. So hard to beat that. Is he B tier card?
Yeah, I think Super Scroll is one of those cards that truly fluctuates where he's at in a tier list, like
Yes.
patch to patch, week to week.
Right. That's a good
But I
point.
think right now, I think with especially like we were talking about with the leech change now, Super Scroll is gonna be even more viable
Uh
because you
huh.
literally have to Enchantress Super Scroll to turn them off since there's not that, and there's gonna be so much Tribunal everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think beer is really good.
I think that's fair. It's a good point with the leech. He does have a very low floor. I mean, if he doesn't copy anything, he's a 4/2. But if he does copy stuff, his ceiling is so high. He has like the biggest range, maybe, of all the 4 cost cards.
Hmm.
Where in B tier? Like
I
right in the middle?
honestly top of B tier.
Think very top?
Hmm.
All right, I agree with that because I'm a huge Super Scroll fanboy, so I am happy to hear you say that. All right, then we've got the
Oh, I
Thing.
love this variant.
Is so clean. So the Thing obviously is a 4/6 with no ability, but we will also consider him as his evolved form with high Evo. So a 4/6 that when played will give -1 power to 3 random cards on your opponent's side of that location.
I think he's in the C tier. I think it's really interesting if you put him like side by side with Man Thing. Like Man
Oh,
Thing's ongoing's the -2, but the
right,
Thing can hit any card opposed to just like specific ones, twos, and three costs.
right.
And which helps your Abomination kind of a little bit more because your opponent will be playing on that lane no matter what, opposed to like being able to dodge the negative energy
Mm-hmm.
or negative power. But I think still C because like with Patriot, if you Mystique with him, I mean he gets to 410, which I mean that's cool, but like
You could play
nothing
Obsidian.
crazy. Yeah. I since we're talking about the high Evo stuff, honestly, I have him above Hellcow.
All right. Then we've got Typhoid Mary. Great, obviously, with Sauron in Shuri decks. That's really the only place she would see play. And there are some other big 410s out now. We got a lot of 410s in the game, it turns out. Where do
Hmm.
we have Typhoid Mary?
I think Typhoid's still C tier. I think it's a cool interaction you can do with her decks to junk some stuff order over with with tech like debris and stuff. I've done
Uh
that
huh.
some. But I think just the -1 stat line is like if you don't account for that, like that -1 can lose you games.
Yeah, you need to turn it off, basically. If you don't turn
Yeah.
it off, you're in trouble. I think she's better than Atuma still. Where in C tier do we have her?
I think that's a decent spot above Nick Fury. I know we're kind of ragging on Nick Fury, but it's like the RNG aspect of Nick Fury. Like
Yeah.
if you get
And
Agatha
he
on your
just
hand, you're
comes
gonna die.
later. If you want card generation, you kind of want to try and hit it earlier, or with Loki where you get the discount, so it's worth it. Because generating later, you often just can't play what you get. All
Yeah.
right, then we've got Warpath, pretty early game, beginner friendly
Hmm.
card. Really only sees play in like Spectrum Destroyer decks. Even then, I don't know if they use him anymore when you've got these other 4 cost cards. Because he goes up to a 410
Hmm.
if you have an empty location. Is he C? Is he F? What do you think?
So like the interesting with Warpath, I think Warpath's another one of those cards like you're just cheating out for Scar, or you're using for
Yeah,
like the Professor X thing. I think the 410, which he originally was like a 4.9,
right.
and they buffed him up. I still don't think he's good.
I agree.
So I think he's one of those cards where it's like one of those lower collection level cards that you use. So I think maybe a please buff. I think F or below Atuma. I don't know. I think is he better than Hercules?
I think so.
Okay.
Because you could just play like even if you wanted to do like a cheaper version of like a standard ongoing tribunal list, you don't
Mm-hmm.
need to play in 3 lanes for that. You want to stack 1 lane heavy for like the Iron Man onside tribunal, or if you're just playing Spectrum Destroyer, you could use him.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I guess, but we're not using him overall. But
we're
I
not.
see
Yeah,
the argument. Okay.
I'm not sure he's in need of. I don't know. He's tough. He's tough. I could see it going either way. We'll have him here for now. Then we've got Werewolf by Night. Used to be absolutely busted, bonkers, nuts when he was a 3/3 on release. Now he's a 4/4. Obviously gets the Zabu discount, which he likes. He feels good. He doesn't feel A tier anymore. Definitely not S tier. To me, he feels B or C. I would say B tier though.
I can see the argument for like a low A tier,
Mm-hmm.
but I think he's like a top B tier. I don't think he's close to C tier. I think he's better than Super Scroll.
Yeah.
I think just with the bounce archetype right now and how good, especially with the Hope package, like Woody's list that he came out with earlier this past week is really really good.
Yeah, I think Werewolf, he's pretty hard to play still. You need to,
Mm-hmm.
manage his bouncing well and board space well. And obviously, if you draw him later in the game, like turn 5 or turn 6, it's hard to get value out of him. Whereas some other
Yeah.
forecast cards, like Cole, he can come down any turn. Even Dracula, if you drew late, like it's not horrible. Next up, we've got White Queen with this super sweet new variant. But White Queen, to me, feels a bit overshadowed by Iron Lad and some other forecast cards. She's also kind of one of these beginner cards. And she just copies a card. It gives you some info, but you still gotta play it if you do. If not, she's just a 4/6 on the board. Where do we have White Queen? She's kind of hard for me to rank.
So this is going to be a hot take.
Oh
I
boy.
think I
Oh
think White
boy. Whenever you
Queen
say
is
that, you're gonna say something too good.
no. I think White Queen's F tier. I think
Oh.
White Queen needs a buff.
Oh.
Where we're at in the meta and everything too. I have her above Hercules in F tier.
All right, and actually, I want to move Warpath back down now. After
Yeah.
seeing this, where would we have Warpath?
I have Warpath below Hercules.
Below, there we go. Okay, it seems weird having this many F tier cards, but
Mm-hmm.
all of these cards there's just better options. All right, and then I think last up, we've got Wong. Very interesting card here. Obviously, Wong is like the king of wombo combo cards, right? If you hear me say wombo combo, you're probably thinking in your head already some Wong shenanigans. We do Wong,
Longbow.
Mystique, go Wong, go Wong, Mystique into like Hazmat or White Tiger, Silver Surfer. I mean, throughout time, he's had so many nuts stuff.
Gambit.
Black Panther, yeah, Gambit with Odin. He's obviously super cheesy, easy to counter. But if you don't have a counter for him, if you're not running Cosmo or you can't turn off ongoings, and your opponent plays Wong, you probably crap your pants a bit and you're like, what do I do? Like
Mm-hmm.
you're in trouble. Wong has a very powerful ability. It's just easily countered. So his floor is low, his ceiling is high. Where do you have Wong?
I think because of how counterable Wong is, even like a Magneto throws Wong for a loop or
Yeah.
just clogging him. I think he's a B tier card. I think we are seeing a lot of freaking White Tiger and Odin type of stuff, and that's like
It's so
knocked me out of
easy. It's
Infinity
so easy to
Conquest.
pull it off. Yeah.
And it hurts every time because you're like, this is a lower pool list kind of
Right.
thing. But like,
Yeah.
I think he's good. I think um I might have him above. I might have him above Jubilee.
All right. Yeah, I think he's very niche. He's very specific. But if you get him to work, he's a huge win condition.
Yeah.
Right? Like he just wins you game. Okay, so we have ranked all cards. So let's take a second, look at our list. If there's anything that we want to move around, we can. And if, we'll see how we think. So I like our F tier. I think it's very
hmm
full, but I think it's accurate. Is there any A tier cards you would move down to B tier?
Do we move Lockjaw down to B tier?
I was thinking moving Lockjaw down.
Yeah.
Do we keep him above Werewolf?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Yeah, would we still have Absorbing Man in B? Where do you think of him now
I
that we
think we
have
could
the
put
list?
I think we can put Absorbman in C tier.
Where would you have him? At the front or behind a couple?
I would have him behind Miles, but above the thing.
All right, would you keep Jessica Jones in B?
Yeah, I think she's still low B.
Okay, I think it's fair, especially the Storm Jessica Jones. It's so much power even now. If you're
hmm
going for a tempo deck, it's solid. So I like this list. Is there any last changes you would argue to make?
No, I think honestly having Jubilee and Ghost Rider like dead in the middle of B is really good.
So I think we've made a pretty good list. I'm happy with it. Is there anything last words you want to say to the viewers, Tuck?
I think this is probably one of our better lists too. I think the points we added were pretty valid too. Of course, you guys get to decide what you think of it down in the
Roast us in the
comments
comments. If you
below.
disagree, roast us in the comments.
Yeah.
We'll read them. I always read the comments, so you can roast me there. I'll see the takes. So thank you, everybody, for sticking around. We are going to have our 5 costs and 6 cost tier list coming out in the near future. So
hmm
as always, until then, stay positive, and I'll see you next time.